What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again. And this time we are here with Markus of Empyrium. Thank you so much for your time today. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's a
Yeah.
pleasure.
Yeah, I'm very excited for the rest of the world to hear this brand new album, Über, Sternen. Want to know, first off, if A, I pronounced it right, and B, how the making of this album really came to be. I really want to know how this brand new Imperium album, sort of came to see the light of day, being that you've had so many albums out now in the past.
Okay, the absolutely correct pronunciation would be Über den Sternen.
Okay.
And it translates to above the stars.
Okay.
In English. So we worked pretty long on this album for 6 years actually. We started writing in 2013, 2014, and we basically wrote and recorded let's say we recorded the album as we wrote it. Some of you might maybe know that I'm a producer as well, and I have a recording studio. And I met with Thomas, the other guy of Empyrium. We usually met like for 1 week and worked on like 1 or 2 songs, and then we let them rest like for 3 months, and then met again and rearranged them or fine-tuned them. And so we worked in a couple of like this 1 week long sessions on this album, and it took quite a while to get it done. But finally in 2019 we finished it, and now it's released in 2021 because of there were some delays because of the current situation and other things. So we had to delay the release, but we are happy that it's finally out now.
Mm-hmm. Being that you worked on this for a long, extended period of time, and you mentioned you were recording as you were writing it. So being that it was a very long time, is what we're hearing on these songs from the Three Flames Sapphire to, the Archer and stuff, is this almost like, did these songs change a lot over a span of time, or is how we are listening to it how they first were originally written?
It depends on the songs. It's a good question, because some songs changed dramatically in the years, and other songs stayed more or less as they were. Funnily, for example, the Lucid Tower Beckons on the Hills Afar. This song changed the most. I think we rearranged it like 3 or 4 times. We added in stuff. We later deleted stuff again, and deleted parts, added in new parts, and until it finally worked. And now it's one of my favorite songs on the album, actually. But this song in particular had quite a journey. But for example, the Three Flames of Fire and the title track, they were pretty much written and stayed untouched for the rest of the time. So it really is song dependent. Some songs, and it's in general, when you write music, or at least in my experience from writing music for over 25 years, sometimes songs come and they are very easily made. They just come to you, and it's like they just happen. And other songs need a lot of work, and it's the same with this album.
Yeah. And do you find it harder, the longer you're working on something, and I don't even know if this is something that you necessarily try to achieve in Empyrium, but when you're working on something for a long period of time, it's harder to kind of capture a moment or maintain that emotional spark?
Yes, absolutely. This is the art, and this is the art in general. I'm talking a lot about this with this new release, because in general speaking, I think it's super hard, for example, to get the naivety and this very wild creativity that you had when you were a youngster and started out doing music. Now everything you do is more mature, and it's more well done and more refined. But the art form is always to have the balance between the naivety and the emotion and the refined, more mature composition. And I think this is true as well when you work for a long period on a song to maintain the initial emotion in the song.
Yeah, and I'd imagine as you're feeling different emotions as you're working on something for a long period of time, maybe that adjusts the sound and brings the new sounds into it, right?
Exactly, that's exactly right. Making music or art in general is always kind of a reflection of the time you're living in, and it's no different with this album. And When I see the progress we did from the first song we wrote until the last, it kind of, the first song when you write an album is always kind of the blueprint, but for this album it was as well the same, but it evolved a lot in the composition of the whole album. We started with this as a blueprint, but then we went somewhere completely different with the next song and so forth. So that was quite interesting. It was really a journey making this album.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I feel when I listen to Above the Stars. Like, it almost does feel like an actual journey. Like, I feel like you need to start off with like the Three Flame Sapphire and end with the title track. It's not like this album is what I like to say shuffle friendly, you know what I mean?
Ah, yeah, absolutely. It's an album, It's composed as an album, and this is how I grew up with music, listening to albums, and I still love writing an album instead of just how do you say, a compilation of songs, thrown together. For me, it's very important that the album has a flow and a theatrical element to the flow, or a dramatic thing going from the first song to the last song.
Yeah.
The last song, the title track, is kind of a conclusion of the whole album and takes all the elements and puts them. It's like in the theater, when you have the last part where they put together the whole story again.
The conclusion.
It's a little, exactly. It's a little bit like that on this album as well. And this is very cool to hear that people really also perceive it as an album, and as that the album is the piece of art and not just this one track. You know.
Do you feel that because of that? Like, obviously, because with Empyrium's music, there's elements of like folk, but there's elements of metal. Like, I feel like there are many different sounds, but in order for like to give it that sort of like chronological journey feeling, do you feel like all the songs? Do you think that makes it harder for the songs to maybe have their own meaning in a way, or?
Well, no, I think they still can stand individually for themselves, but I just love it when they can stand individually, but as a whole they make a great bigger picture. It's like when you have a photography book or something, the individual photos can be viewed as themselves, or an art or paintings as well, but the whole concept can make a great bigger picture of everything. And this is the same with this album, I think. The songs stand for themselves, but the album paints the bigger picture.
Do you feel that sometimes a theme or like a concept or a story could influence the music itself as well?
Absolutely. It's for me, it's not always like I first write the music and then I write the lyrics. Sometimes it is like that, but sometimes it's there's a spark, like maybe I read a line from a poem, or a special experience I have made, and that inspires me, and I can kind of save that mood and then make a song out of it at whatever point, maybe 10 years later it happens that I play a guitar riff and I think like, wow, this really reminds me of that moment in time, and then it clicks all together. I think making music or making art in general works a lot on a subconscious level. Sometimes you do a lot of stuff that you really don't know why you're doing it, but your subconsciousness it takes the grip, and knows exactly what it's doing. And this is letting this go and being intuitive and everything about this is one of the most important things for me, actually.
Yeah, and I'd imagine that inspiration sometimes strikes at the most inconvenient times as well, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And then it's the great gift for a true artist to be able to kind of hold this inspiration until you can really release it. I think it's like I said in one interview. I once said it's like a jewelry box, where you put the jewelry in, and at one point you open it. And it at the right point for you, but you have to put all the time. You have to put jewelry into that box,
Yeah, but I was interviewing Burton from Fear Factory one time, and he was telling me that inspiration is like lightning, like it's gone as quick as it could come sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I know what he's saying. Yeah, I know the feeling, and there's nothing worse than when you're inspired. And then you have to figure out some technical issues,
Yeah.
with your gear or something. Oh shit, my guitar string broke.
That's gotta be the worst.
It's the worst. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I think guitar players and drummers hate each other so much. Because if a drummer drops a drumstick or his breaks, he just picks up another drumstick and gets right to it. But your guitar string breaks, you got to stop
Yeah.
everything.
Nothing you can do about it. You have to stop. Yeah. And I experienced this live, like everybody else playing guitar.
Yeah.
In the always in the worst moments, like 2 seconds before there's the break where you play alone.
Yeah.
And then your guitar.
Oh, that's got to be the worst. But at least it lets the audience know that you're real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you just click, 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 click.
Yeah. There was this one performance artist. It was so stupid, but I got the concept of it. Where like he went on stage and just the entire set performance was him tuning, restringing the guitar, checking the line levels, all that. It was like performance art. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
I get
Okay.
what you're doing about this, but this sucks.
This sucks. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, do you like to leave the music open to interpretation? Because I feel like with an Empyrium album, everything counts. It's not just the music. I love the presentation of it, everything from the artwork to the story to the meaning. So do you try to engage the listener into the meaning of the record, or do you kind of like to leave every record open to interpretation?
I like to engage the people to my vision of the songs. This is what for example, I'm a photographer as well.
Oh, right.
And the art book and the whole layout features a lot of my photographies, which kind of bring it also to another level. When you put a visual piece to the song and also the lyrics, of course, and so there is a very, very clear. A very clear vision of what this song is about or the album is about for me. But of course, there's still room for interpretation for everyone.
Yeah.
But I just like to be very precise in what I want to describe or what I want to express with the music. That's something I kind of, or I don't know if you can say learned it, but there's one band that really like That Can Dance. They have been always a huge inspiration for me, and they were the first band where I really realized that music can transform you to a different place. That music has this capability to transform you into a forest or into a church or whatever. And this is what we really try to do with Empyrium as well, painting pictures with notes.
Being that you're a photographer, I love talking with musicians who work with multiple mediums, like Jacob from Converge, or like John Baisley from Baroness, how they're all painters and stuff. Being that you have multiple mediums that result in an experience that you share with somebody, is there maybe a similar creative energy that you put into photography as you do with music, or are they almost two separate headspaces or strategies?
Basically, it's the same. It's always. I think the most important thing with everything is finding the balance in a song, finding the balance in a composition when you do photography. This is super important. I'm also a record producer or a studio owner, and it's the same when you mix an album. It's exactly the same. You have to find the balance, and this is the most important aspect of it, and this is where they are all very similar, to strive for this balance and something that works for you and really grabs you. And then I'm convenient by now or faithful in my own instinct that it works for other people as well,
Yeah, and working and mixing, with other people, which I think is also really cool. Does it maybe open up your mind to new ideas on on elements you could bring into Empyrium?
Absolutely, all the time. I'm recording. I'm doing this like over 20 years, and I learned a lot from. I just learned the same way from bands that I record. Like they maybe learn something from me. It's the same. Sometimes I record this band and I think, wow, this is such a great riff, and it inspires me to write something similar later, And sometimes, like I said before, it's like 10 years later where I realize where I got an initial idea from. Like, oh shit, I listened to this old record, for example, again, and I think like, oh, fuck, that's where I got this idea from. I didn't realize it at the time, And it's inspiring to work as a record producer, but it's the same, again, when I'm very busy with producing an album with a band, a very intense period of 4 or 5 weeks, in this period, I don't write. I don't write any music. I get home and I don't listen to music even. I just want to have rest, of course, because it's very exhausting working hard on music. But it's kind of, again, during the time where I work with a band, I put a lot of jewelry into my little jewelry box, and when I'm fresh and really into composing for Empyrium or any of my other projects, then I can open the box, where I put all these little inspirations and little gems in there.
Yeah, and like it's funny too because I'd imagine that one thing that makes producing other bands' music different from the stuff Empyrium. I feel like as a producer, there is almost kind of like, for lack of better words, like a level of professionalism that you have to maintain, or kind of like you have to put yourself in their shoes, adjust your creativity to what they want. It is a clientele base. So I almost is it almost fair to say that maybe working with another band's music is a little less liberating?
Yes, of course. It's their record, I always define my job as a producer as to being, as to helping them making the best possible record they can make, But it's still their record. It's not my record. And this is where I think some producers really fail, that work with bands and tell them, well, you cannot do this and you cannot do that. That's the right way to do it. And that's the wrong way how you do it. I think this is not really working with the band, because the band needs to do their record, and what I can do is helping them making it sound as great as possible and making the best version of themselves. But it should never be my record. So this is, like you said, it's based on their ideas, of course, and I'm just here to help them with.
Yeah, I was interviewing a Logan Mader from Machine Head, and he said that sometimes being a producer, it is kind of like a over-glorified camp counselor in a way.
There's a lot of psychology in it, absolutely, getting the mood right with the people, being nice, of course, as well, and getting a good mood where you can work in a great creative way, and not there are some people that really think that you need to suffer for your art when you record it. Sometimes it's true, but it's for me it's not a must. You can have great fun, recording an album, and it still is very emotional, and still it's very deep,
Yeah, I've always hated that stereotype that if you're an artist, you have to suffer somehow.
I'm not like that at all, When I'm really suffering, I don't write music, When I'm really suffering, I'm in my bed and look at the wall, But for me, when I'm creative, this is what I love doing, and there's nothing sorrowful about being creative.
Yeah, metalheads are always rebels, so now being happy is the greatest form of rebellion you could have, especially at these times.
Absolutely,
yeah. That's why I think folk metal musicians are the new punk rock.
Yeah, there's a point about that, yeah.
Yeah. Now, you ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview?
Okay.
How do you know when a song is done?
How do you know when a song is done? Actually, I think a song is never done.
I get that all the time.
Yeah, but you have to find the point where you think this is the best version you can do at this moment. And I being a record producer, I know the struggle of many bands nowadays. I'm really glad that I started recording music in the 90s when we still recorded on 2-inch 24-track tape, where when you laid down a take that was good, that's it. That's it. The take was good, let's go on. Nowadays you take like 50 versions of a take, and then you put together little pieces to one master take, and you do this with every track. You can change everything until the last minute before the master goes to the pressing plant, to the manufacturing. So it's really, many people struggle hardly nowadays to find an end. And I'm glad that I learned this already in the 90s, that at one point this is the best you can give for a song, and then you have to let it loose, let it go.
Yeah, I was talking with a musician one time, and they said that knowing when to finish a song is almost like a discipline. It is almost kind of like a strategy, like music theory, or like knowing what you're doing, knowing when to finish it is kind of like a discipline that you have to master.
Yeah, exactly. It's a discipline. You have to be. I think it's a little bit the same when you have kids. You know, I have two kids, and they are already. My daughter is already 13 years old, and the day will come when she leaves the house. You know, and this you have to be prepared for it. And it's the same with the song. At one point, you have to let it go. You know, it's just you. I mean, of course, you could work on it for all eternity, but it wouldn't make it better necessarily, but just different. You know.
Yeah, and I feel like when you, not even just when you finish the art, but as you're creating it, it's not like, you kind of have to act as its humble guide in a way. You don't want to be the dictator of it. You don't want to abandon the art to the point where it's raw and unfinished, but you also don't want to suffocate it and dictate it. Like,
Exactly, that's absolutely true. You just have to let the song breathe, you know, and to the song become something, you know. And this is it's something that you need to learn, you know, to not go so much into detail all the time, you know. And you step back at one point and look at the bigger picture of a song as well, and of the whole album at best, you know. And we have this German saying, you don't see the forest of all the trees, you know, because you just see trees, but there is a forest, you know, and that's the big picture.
absolutely, and that's and as somebody who has explored through the Bavarian forest, that is both true, very literal and metaphorical.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I have two more questions for you. But as a musician, like, working in photography, but also working with music, is music always been a means of escape for you, or has like Imperium been like just a direct extension of who you personally are? Do you feel that if somebody really wants to know who Marcus is, just listening to Imperium's music is a good representation of that?
It's a good representation of one part of myself, definitely. And I think Imperium, when I started it in '94, and maybe a year later, or 1.5 years later, it kind of made it made the meaning of my life. You know, I realized that this is what I am, and this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. Doing music, producing music, being in the studio, being creative, and it really gave meaning to my life. And as cliche as it may sound, but it was really like I realized back then through my music who I am, and I think there is a lot of myself in the music, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing though on how much art can help you discover things about yourself that you wouldn't have discovered otherwise.
Absolutely, it's like a great art is a great. Like I said before, I think when making art, the subconsciousness is doing so many things that you just don't realize it. How your subconsciousness is putting together these parts into an arrangement where you are baffled in the end as well. Like, wow, that's amazing how it all works together now. And you think it happened by magic, but it happened by the power of your subconsciousness.
Well, this is like a scientific fact, actually. If you take something that's very addicting, like a video game or like, even the iPhone, for example, like it is programmed to trigger certain receptors in your brain to make you feel dependency on it. So I heard that with artists, whether you are a musician or a painter or a sculptor or whatever, there is something, I forgot what like part of the brain it is, but there is something that does get like triggered in a way where like you feel a fulfillment of creating something. You know what I mean?
Okay. Absolutely. I bet it's the hypothalamus in the brain that's responsible for that.
That should be the name of the band.
Okay. And I can really I need to create to be myself, and I need to create to feel content and to feel fulfilled. And surely I am absolutely addicted to creating, because when I'm not creating, I'm not in a good mood, and I really need it. It's a necessity for my person to create.
Yeah. But
this is why I have so many, this is why I have like 4 bands and do photography and produce other bands, because I really need to create.
Yeah, but there are times where you do need to take a break too, right? Like, and that's justified.
Absolutely. When I go to holiday, for example, it's fascinating. I sometimes don't listen to any music for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I don't miss it then, because I put myself into another state of mind, and it's all about, being a different part of myself, of course, that is there as well. I'm family father and a husband, and you know, and so of course that's what I said when I said when you listen to Empyrium or Son of the Sleepless or the Vision Bleak, my other projects, you always know a part of myself, but it's of course not everything about me.
I heard some artists make the best work when they have a family because then they have a good way of like they have something to keep them occupied when they're not invested in their work. So like they're actually justified in putting their work aside because family comes before anything. And then and then having a family and just experiencing that is such a great subject matter to expand your horizons.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm glad I have this, and it just how do you say we say what's the English word? It brings it to the ground. It grounds you.
Yeah.
It grounds you having a family. And having these everyday problems as well, like shoveling snow away today, or stuff like that. Stuff you need to take care in the house, and it's very important. To as well. We are about balance here. Finding the balance in your life as well. Being only the mad scientist, the artist in the cellar. 24/7. You won't be a happy guy. I think you need to counterbalance it with something more normal.
The craziest artists are always the most lonely ones, and there is a lot of truth to that. Loneliness. I mean, it makes great subject matter for art, but like with anything, too much of anything is bad for you, and loneliness is that you will succumb to so much madness to the point where you're not making art about it anymore. You're just making destruction.
Absolutely, I agree. Yes.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time in this amazing discussion. Really, really inspiring. Is there just anything with the release of Above the Stars that you would like to promote for Empyrium? Maybe like, obviously thanks to a certain virus that shall not be named. Obviously, there's no live music at the moment, but can we maybe be getting like a live stream performance, or when live music does return, can you please bring Empyrium to the States?
We want to play a couple of gigs in May, but I'm not sure if this will happen. But then we have another plan to do a couple of gigs in September, and I hope they will happen. And if they won't happen in September, there's the option for a live stream show. Yes, okay. This is. But there's still so many things that are not certain, like everybody knows about the whole situation. So. I stopped making plans about live performances right now. I have to say, I really stopped making plans because whenever you make plans, they are destroyed again. So I rather focus right now on producing other bands and being creative. This is what I'm doing right now, and the rest of the time will tell what will happen.
I don't think any of us have any more room for disappointment, so let's just take it as it comes.
Exactly. That's exactly we had delays with shows. Actually, the album was planned to be released last November, and we wanted to play shows with it. And we put the album release to January and wanted to play shows with it. And now it's February and no shows with it. So yeah. So I just take it how it comes, and don't make any plans anymore.
Yeah. Well, but when live music does return, it'll definitely be worth it. And thank you for giving us some music to help us while we wait for it.
Thank you for the nice talk. It was really a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, everybody. We are here with Markus of Empyrium, Above the Stars, coming out via Prophecy Productions, February 26th. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.